All right, everyone. Thanks for joining. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. Super excited to share some findings around our grid talent trends, which we will be releasing later on this month. So this is a bit of a preview, a little sneak peek at some of the data and some of the insights that we've uncovered. So before we do, just keep in mind, this session is being recorded. Everyone is on mute, hopefully except for me. And there is a questions panel that you will see pop up shortly. Feel free to throw your questions in there. We'll have plenty of time at the end for a Q&A. So my name's Andre Maletti. I'm the product evangelist at Bullhorn, and I specialize in talent experience. And I came over with the acquisition of Able earlier this year, where I was founding member of that team, and I led go-to-market and sales for that organization. Prior to staffing or prior to Able, I spent over a decade in e-commerce, where I work with some of the largest brands and retailers in the world, building interactive marketing and merchandising experiences and strategies to drive higher conversion online. So my experience, very timely, very relevant to what's going on in the staffing space, and certainly relevant to the data that we're going to be looking at today. So where did the data come from? We surveyed over 2,000 global temp and contract workers, which is kind of impressive to be able to get feedback from over 2,000 people, mostly in North America and Western Europe. And we asked them questions about what it was like working for a staffing firm. What were their experiences like? Did they work for talent platforms? Overall sentiment, and what are their expectations, and what would they like to see, right? So it's a beautiful, beautiful view behind the veil of really what talent is thinking about and what they're looking for in a temp agency. Now, why temp? Because if you remember from our earlier grid report this year, where we surveyed staffing firms, it's on everyone's mind. Talent acquisition, talent experience, top priorities of staffing firms going into this year. And I bet a lot of the digital transformation efforts were geared around investing in tech stack improvements to drive a better candidate experience. And as we know, it was the first year that finding and winning new clients was not the top priority. It's also the hardest quarter on record for recruiters to actually recruit talent. And this is 3.7 out of 5 is a number that comes from SIA, where they survey staffing firms and recruiters every year. So a lot of challenges, right? Our focus is on talent, and it's the hardest time ever to actually find and engage that talent. So a little bit of the why, right? What are the factors in the industry? Before we get into the numbers, I think it's important for us to understand like where these numbers are coming from. And I think you're not going to be shocked by a lot of the data here. What is happening is the value system has changed for employees, right? What used to be all about consistency and stability and pay and focus on the American dream is now all about speed and flexibility and choice and even happiness. You know, my parents never even thought about being happy at work. They just knew they were going to do it every day. Well, that whole sentiment has changed completely, especially, and it's changed because of a younger workforce, right? The changes in demographics are driving a lot of that. And with this new, this younger workforce, they know nothing else other than a simple, easy digital way to do everything. And so they expect that to translate into employment or applications or looking for work or adding to an existing work resume, right? On top of that, you have the talent platforms or these tech first employment strategies coming to the market that showed them, hey, there is actually a better way. It's right here. Take a look at this. This is how work can be. And they really focused on building communities instead of talent pools. And that's a really important part here to drive engagement. So work has become commoditized. And in any industry where you have a consumerization of the product or the service that is being driven, experience becomes a major differentiator because work can be found anywhere. So with talent in control, the staffing firm really, really needs to take a different focus and really look at what is going to drive that sort of engagement so you can actually find and keep the talent that you need to fulfill your customers' needs. So this whole concept of consumerization of employment is something I'd like for us to have in the back of our minds as we go through the data. And if you know from Bullhorn, you're going to be seeing a lot about this concept of connected recruiting, which is our strategy, right? We're trying to arm the industry with this concept that it's about a sum of its parts, right? To drive an incredible talent experience across the entire life cycle is not just about improving one component, about like creating one more automation or one happy birthday email or improving onboarding experience. It's about being able to do all of them and link them all together, which creates what is known as a flywheel effect. And for some of the largest organizations in the world that have succeeded tremendously when their industries have been consumerized, they've been able to create this flywheel effect. So that, of course, is at the backdrop of the message that we're trying to help promote with this data and with our general services. So before we actually get into the data, I think it would be fun if we took a poll first. And I'm going to ask you one question, outside of finding a job. What do you think was the #1 reason why talent took a job at a staffing firm? So we'll give you 30 seconds, think about that, answer the question, only select one. We'll look at the results, and then I'm going to show you what the talent said. Apparently I can't vote, which is unfortunate because I wanted to cast my own vote. Although I know the data behind it, so that wouldn't be too fair. All right, Hannah, let's go ahead and see what our audience said. Okay, so other than access to a desirable job, what do you think the top reasons talent chose to work with a staffing firm? A resounding positive recruiter interaction, over 50%, followed by they reached out with a good opportunity, and then reputation and positive past experience, close to even there as the two last options. This is going to be a little crazy, but let's go ahead and actually look at what that data came out to be. Top 5 reasons, of course, access to desired contract assignments, 34%. Reputation came in as the #1 after that, followed by they reached out with a good opportunity, positive past experiences, and I value my interaction with a recruiter is the exact opposite. It's the inverse of what we as an industry thought was going to be the main reason why. This is the consumerization of the employment industry right here, and what we think is of value to a talent versus what the talent actually values. And that is the consumerization is showing that reputation, right? They're looking at opportunities and saying, this is a temp opportunity. Let me do my own research in Google. Let me see what others have said. If there's a positive review of a opportunity or of a customer or of a job or a staffing firm, I'm going to go ahead and take a chance. That is going to be the #1 reason outside of, hey, this is the right job for me. And that's amazing that the data is actually the inverse of what we as an industry have just surveyed ourselves on. So in regards to recruiters, though, the top value that recruiters add to the experience, so finding the right jobs is still #1, right? Getting the interviews and the opportunities, the work that's going on in the background that recruiters do, that is going to be always of incredible value. But I think as automation, as more on-demand opportunities come into play, those numbers are going to go down. And then providing advice and expertise and knowledge that probably technology can't provide, I have a feeling that those are going to increase. So this time next year, if we look at this number, I'll bet you those 8 or 9% around advice and expertise and knowledge are going to grow, and then finding the right jobs might still remain, or it might come down a little bit. Most common problems, right? So we surveyed them and asked, hey, what are the top problems you have when working with a staffing firm? So responsiveness is, of course, very big, followed by the process, the application, the onboarding process. It took too long, it's too cumbersome. Remember, the younger generations that are entering this workforce, they're expecting the Instagram or the Snapchat experience, one click application. one click, buy a product on Amazon, have it there tomorrow. Immediate gratification, flexibility around choice and convenience. So I'm not surprised to see those numbers in there. It was a little concerning to see that recruiter was not being proactive, and poor job matching making it into the top 5, especially since those seem to be like core blocking and tackling components for recruiters within the staffing space. So rhetorical question, but let's go ahead and ask it. So what do responsiveness, pay, and training all have in common? Based on our data, challenges in those areas make talent twice as likely to be Net Promoter Score detractors. So just remember that: responsiveness, pay, and training. So that responsiveness and training, I'm going to show you some data in a little bit that add to that. Pay is obviously something that, if it happens, of course, it's a negative experience. It's very hard to come back from that if you miss a payroll. But the responsiveness and the training are items that we can have control over and we can gradually improve on. So I've got some quick hits here. So I'm going to have about 4 or 5 slides with just one number and one value to it. 66%. This is 7 out of 10 workers have abandoned a promising opportunity because it took too long. So think about that. Someone was looking for a job, probably on their computer or phone, and they saw something and they said, "Man, this is perfect for me. This is very promising. I think this would be great." And they got into the process of applying or going through onboarding or waiting for an interview, and they said, "Yikes, this experience stinks. I'm out of here." So they abandoned the process 7 out of 10 times. That's a tremendous number. 1 out of 3 say recruiters matched them with jobs that weren't a fit. I know 1 out of 3 doesn't sound like a lot, but add a couple zeros to that and you start realizing, this being a core value prop of working with a staffing and recruiting firm, it's pretty big. 100 out of 300, 1,000 out of 3,000 say that they weren't matched properly. And if our core mission is to understand, the requirements and understand the value that a talent can provide to a specific job and not being able to match those up, that's tough. 1 out of 3 says responsiveness declined once the assignment began. This is another one where it's, where we're simply just in the process of finding somebody, hitting them up, and then moving away, or finding someone, getting them into a job, and then moving to the next candidate or the next rec. This is where talent is actually saying, hey, we want more engagement. We want to be reached out to with new opportunities or advice or expertise once a week in many cases. 1 out of 3 say that recruiter wasn't proactive about opportunities when one fell through, right? So this is kind of falls into that same workflow where you're working talent, and instead of worrying about building an engaging relationship with that talent one-to-one and meet them where they are in the moment, if you're doing one-to-one in terms of one candidate and one placement or one rec, you should be hitting them across multiple different opportunities. In that case, when the most promising one falls through, you can have multiple options still there in play. Oops, going the wrong way, sorry. 36% say recruiters didn't reach out about future opportunities before their assignment date ended. That's a tough one, right? It's pretty simple. With the majority of the industry invested in automation and having the data at their fingertips in their system of record, we should be able to drive engagement prior to assignment end date on jobs through job matching, AI. It's all there. 3 out of 5 want recruiters to reach out at least once a week. I was surprised by this, to be honest with you. I was expecting it to be, don't ever reach out, I'll reach out to you. But the folks that engage with staffing firms, they're interested in that type of engagement because they want to value what those differentiators can be with working with a recruiter or a staffing firm. So they expect that if you know me, if you know what my skills and my attributes are and the types of jobs I'm looking for, you're out hunting for me. It's this whole idea of being an agent of the talent. If they expect that, or if that is the perception, then they expect an engagement at least once a week. Hope that wet everyone's whistle around some of the data. I'm really excited for us to publish the full report, which will be coming out in a few weeks, and we'll be sending some information out to everyone. We'll be sending a link to this recording to everyone as well. Now let's go ahead and dive into some Q&A, Hannah, if we have any questions from the group. And if you are talking, you are on mute, so I could not hear you.
So we do have, I know you already mentioned this, but this is launching next Thursday. So you get the full report at that point, but, yeah, here we go. What does this mean for managing recruiters is one of the questions we have, Andre. So I think like the implications of, I guess, how to funnel this down to recruiters.
Yeah. I think for managing recruiters, I think it's about looking at the data and creating the right visibility into your recruiter's workflow. Without the data, you won't know what is working and what is not. So I don't know what types of reports, what types of visibility you currently have. I think it's important to understand the moments that matter within a talent's experience and to measure against them. And you're hitting them, you're doing them, or you're not. And then you can measure whether your actions are actually resulting in a positive outcome for the business or not. So I think in terms of managing recruiters, it's about building the right dashboards and having the right analytics and insights on the back end in order to tell you the story on whether your recruiters are delivering the value that your organization would want them to. Do you have any data on the way in which candidates want to be contacted? Yeah, that one's all over the board. The same way it was when we did the grid survey earlier in the year. It's across email, text, phone, app. You're going to see that everywhere. I think what's more important to understand is that those methods of communication can differ based on the touch point. So understanding your customer journey and understanding those key touch points, and then testing what is the right method. In some cases, delivering a message might be best via phone call. In others, it might be best via self-service within, a self-service portal. In others, it might be email. In others, it might be text. And then testing and measuring which ones have the better conversion rate. So never resting on just setting one communication strategy. Test multiple and see how it impacts conversion. This is more of a comment. I think there might be a question in here. The reality is recruiters today only send out emails and you're not seeing it in your data. A large percentage of recruiters are not doing their jobs properly. What do you think that is? Or maybe why do you think that is? I think it's a training thing, to be honest with you. I mean, when was the last time we trained our recruiters on what it does mean to actually recruit in today's, climate and the world of work we see today, where these are the realities, as opposed to maybe when they started 4 or 5 years ago, when it was more about, smiles and dials or emails in this case. I mean, I'm guessing it has to be a training problem. And then it also has to be a data visibility problem, like I had mentioned earlier. It seems like a lot of the data is relative to the younger workers. Do you have any breakdown by age? So that's a great question, demographics. Bob, I don't know if you're able to answer that. So Bob is the analyst behind the survey and the research. And I don't know, Bob, what our breakdown was in terms of demographics. I'm guessing we tried to weight it. Of the 2,000, we ensured that we got equal parts across certain demographic criteria. If Bob is unable to come off a mute, then that will certainly be answered when we publish a report in the summary of findings section and some of the definitions. Do you think this comes down to new management practices to keep recruiters motivated? What role would automation play in this? I love this question because I think the future of a recruiter is more like a digital marketer, where they're looking at automation, they're looking at data as opposed to looking at tear sheets, and they're looking at their conversion, they're looking at their talent funnels as it relates to their open recs and reading the tea leaves there. So I think it comes down to new practices that we need to forge in the industry, where recruiters are trained to be analysts and to be looking at the data as opposed to simply trying to go grab people from a talent pool, sending out the mass email to everyone, and then hopefully making a few calls to see if you can fill that position. I think that concludes the questions. It looks like everything's been bottomed out. Thank you again, everyone, for joining me and dealing with my cold. This isn't what I usually sound like. Excited to publish this. Everyone will be getting an email with a link to this recording, and then in a matter of a week or so, we'll be publishing the full data set and getting into really a lot more insights at a granular level. Thanks again. Take care.